Hey there everybody, it's Markcrilley. I'm back with another How to Draw video. Today we're going to be learning about using thumbnail sketches to prepare for doing an illustration. Professional artists rarely go straight to the final artwork without doing some sort of preparatory sketch, and very often you can begin with what they call a thumbnail sketch, which is so small that you aren't really worried about being a perfectionist with it. To me, that's one of the key benefits of doing a thumbnail sketch, is you keep it really small. In fact, let's have a look. I did this without, really thinking about it too much. A little over 3 inches from side to side. That works out to 8 centimeters. But indeed, I'm not saying, hey, you should make your thumbnail sketches exactly the same size as mine. No, just to help you understand. That by keeping this small, I kind of trick myself into not spending too much time on any individual thumbnail sketch, so that I feel a little looser and freer to just throw things down and see if it works. So my idea here is I'm going to do a sort of panoramic illustration of a sort of Luke Skywalker type planet, Tatooine, desert planet. And let's say that this guy has his sort of dome-shaped house, and we sort of plunk it right down here in the middle of the illustration, and he's being visited by some sort of spaceship. We'll put it right here. And you can see I'm not trying to make a great drawing here. I'm just sort of tossing the lines down. And let's say that the guy who lives in the house is standing right here next to his house. Quite a small little humble abode he's got here. And maybe there's a pathway that leads to his house. We could have that running off to the side. Okay, so this just gives you a sense of throwing down a few different elements to start working on a composition. Now, part of what I want to do with this video is talk about composition, which is a tricky thing to teach. But by doing these thumbnail sketches, I can move right along and do a second thumbnail sketch and hopefully start to show you how you might refine things based on your dissatisfaction with your initial sketch. Now, very often, putting something dead center of an illustration can be a slightly uninteresting place for it to be. So let's try in this version moving it off to the side, his abode, and getting some, adding some visual interest by doing that. And here we had the door dead center of his sort of igloo-shaped house. What if we move the door over to one side? Already, I feel it's starting to get a little more dynamic. Now, you could try to jam that spaceship right in here where you had before, but I think most artists feel an instinct to balance things out a little bit, and this illustration indeed is fairly balanced in terms of it there being something in almost all the different parts of the panel. So my instinct is to get the ship over here, and since we're trying to make something look three-dimensional very often, seeing the ship from the side seems like that might be a mistake. How about if we see it a little bit from behind? These are the kinds of things that you can work out in a thumbnail sketch, and without laboring over it too much, you say, yeah, I feel like I'm getting more of a 3D look to this illustration if we see sort of the back part of the rocket boosters or whatever of this spaceship. And what if the path, instead of just running off to the side, actually comes down and breaks out of the bottom part of the frame, where here this whole area was sort of empty and not doing anything visually. Then we get the guy back in, maybe in his same location, and so we haven't really changed too much about the guy, but we've changed everything else about the illustration. And then you may still feel, well, now this area is looking very blank to me. Well, what planet is going to sit there with no rocky outcroppings? So let's get some sort of unusual interstellar outcroppings that make this look like an unusual planet where there are rock formations that are a little different from what we might see on Earth. And by making some big ones that are very close to the frame, then you reduce them in size as you get closer to this house in the distance, we're going to end up with a sense of, three-dimensionality if you compare these two different things by adding these extra elements. And again, this is just the kind of stuff that you can work out in a thumbnail sketch. Now I'm feeling getting some sort of distant mountain range is going to help with this illustration, and already I'm starting to feel a little better about this drawing. Now the igloo idea was probably never my real intention. I wanted to sort of jazz things up in terms of the shape of this house, so add a few more little details to give you a sense that, sort of basically igloo shaped. But I want to show you how, for many artists still, they want to do a third thumbnail sketch and start to take things even further from what they had done if I don't really like this one at all. This one I'm starting to like it. Maybe in this one I can take all of the elements of this and improve it even more. And my thinking is, let's get a sort of foreground area of land here that's a little bit like a hill, right? We put the igloo abode on top of that outcropping or sort of hill of stones. Then we have this sense of elevation, and the path can maybe change from being so straight to being a little more zigzagged. We have this idea of, we're going uphill, so maybe there would be steps. And again, this is adding more and more visual interest, making this look more and more like a real illustration. Just gives you more for your eyes to play around with as you look. And I'll go ahead and keep the guy basically where he was, standing there, greeting the ship. Finally, they found me after my years of hiding out on Tatooine. What are you just redoing Star Wars, Curly? What's going on here? Now, one thing that you see here is that the dividing line of the horizon is pretty neatly interrupting, going 50-50 between the top and bottom of the illustration. Very often artists feel that is an uninteresting place to put that line. And so you might try to drop this line down a little further. People talk about the golden mean as sort of like a 30% division of the space. I like to go more by instinct. I don't like to sit there measuring out 30%. And just something rubs me the wrong way about coming up with these sort of laws of composition. But I think you can see that already it's starting to look more interesting. And then what I would like to do is take these foreground outcropping of stone and have them interrupt that horizon line, so that's sort of stabbing into the sky, right? And by having that, instead of below the horizon line, by having it break through the horizon line that's in the distance, we have a much stronger feeling of depth. And then you can start to add maybe secondary ones that sort of echo that shape. I would like to, of course, get more detail into the sort of stony surface of my cheap imitation Tatooine. But I think you can see, hopefully, how little by little we are making a composition out of this illustration that was looking pretty dull at the beginning. And that's the glory of doing a thumbnail sketch. It gives you a chance to sort of work out these different elements without having committed too much time. You can see I did all of this just live. It's all very sketchy. For me, it's almost helpful to know that I don't have to commit to it too much. I forgot the ship, didn't I? Hey, Krill Dog, you forgot the ship. So let's go ahead and draw that real quick. Sticking with my impulse there to have the ship seen slightly from behind and facing toward our hero, the hermit. loosely based on Obi-Wan Kenobi. We decided to come visit you by ship this time, Obi. And so there you go. That's my little explanation of how thumbnail sketches work. And what I'd like to do now is to take a piece of paper, in this case a sort of off-white, brown tan colored piece of paper, and use this thumbnail sketch as the basis of the illustration and show you how I would take this layout that I came up with and do a more polished, finished-looking illustration that's based on it. I'm going to do this all in time-lapse. You know, really the focus of this video was the thumbnails, not the illustration process. But I think it'll be interesting for you to see how I get from this to a finished illustration, even indeed if it is all done in time-lapse. So let's go ahead and get that illustration done. Alright, well there's my video on using thumbnail sketches to prepare for doing an illustration. Let's compare the final illustration with the thumbnail sketch that allowed me to work out the layout. One interesting thing to note is that the location of the house here is slightly different in the final illustration. That is on purpose because I found that I was not happy with this rocket ship and the house being at roughly the same level. I thought it would look nicer if they were at slightly different elevations, let's just say, in the final illustration. But I highly advise you to give it a try. Do a quick little thumbnail sketch before you attempt to do a final illustration. But before we go, I always like to say thank you to anyone who has supported me by getting any of my books, like Mastering Manga 1 and 2. Super grateful for those of you who get those books. The Realism Challenge, my book on hyperrealism, and my very latest book, The Two-Pencil Method. Really cannot say thank you often enough to those of you who choose to support me by getting those books. But let's go ahead and lay down this pen. I want to thank you all for watching this video. I really hope you enjoyed it, and I'll be back with another one real soon.